She considered herself a maintenance technician, Class 7, assigned to Orbital Platform Helix 9, responsible for coolant line inspections and nothing more. She ate her meals alone, filed her reports on time, and kept her hair in a braid tight enough that it never once caught in the vent fan she serviced. She was precise. She was quiet. She was, by every metric the United Earth Fleet used to evaluate personnel, unremarkable. That changed on the 14th day of the Vorith siege. The Vorith had not expected humans to resist. This was their first and most catastrophic miscalculation. The second was believing that an orbital platform with a skeleton crew, most of its defenders evacuated, its weapons systems offline, its reactor running at 11%, was already a corpse. They had broadcast their victory declaration across 17 frequencies before the fires had even fully caught. They had not accounted for Joe Minidai Haiwa. It started with a sound. Joe was 3 decks below the command ring, replacing a cracked pressure coupling in Maintenance Tunnel 7 Bravo, when the first impact shook the platform. Then the second. Then the screaming klaxon swallowed everything else whole. She pressed her back against the tunnel wall, waited for the third strike, counted the interval, for 0.2 seconds, and understood, with the calm clarity that had always lived behind her eyes, that the structural damage was moving inward, toward the cadet barracks. She did not decide to run toward it. She was simply already running. The smoke in Corridor Delta 4 was the color of rust and tasted like burned copper wire. Joe pulled her maintenance mask up, dropped to her elbows, and moved through it the way she moved through every tight, dark space she'd spent her career navigating, with patience, with her hands reading the floor ahead, with the map of this platform burned so deeply into her memory, she could have walked it blind. She had walked it blind. Twice. During the blackout drills no one else took seriously. She found the first cadet, Sam, pinned beneath a collapsed ceiling strut, unconscious, his cadet blue uniform blackening at the sleeve. Joe had no cutting tools rated for structural alloy. She had a maintenance pry bar, a roll of thermal shielding tape, and the specific kind of stubbornness that appears in certain humans without any explanation or origin point. She wedged the bar. She leveraged her entire body weight, all 58 kilograms of it, against the laws of physics, and she held there, muscles burning, until the strut shifted exactly 3 centimeters. Then she dragged Sam through the gap by his collar, 3 meters of corridor, until she found breathable air. She left him propped against a fire-sealed door. She went back in. The second cadet, Lily, was conscious and screaming. This was both better and worse. Better, because Lily could move on her own. Worse, because Lily had inhaled enough smoke that her screaming had reduced to a wet, helpless wheeze, and her eyes had the wide white terror of someone who had stopped thinking and started simply drowning in air. Joe reached her, gripped her face in both hands, and made her look at her. Made her see her. "I know where the oxygen is," Joe said. Her voice was perfectly level. "Do you want to live?" Lily nodded. "Then move when I move. Stop when I stop. Trust that I have walked every centimeter of this platform in the dark. Can you do that?" Lily nodded again. They moved together. Joe counted steps, counted turns, kept one hand trailing the wall, and navigated through zero visibility and active structural collapse the way other people navigate their own kitchens at midnight. The platform groaned around them. Something distant exploded. Joe adjusted her route without breaking stride. She got Lily out. She went back in a third time. The third cadet had no name in the initial reports, only a designation. Cadet Unknown, 3rd Cohort. He was 17 years old. He had been on the platform for 11 days. He had been on his first ever solo night watch when the siege began, and he had done what 11 days of training had prepared him to do. He had locked himself in the emergency shelter on Deck 6 and waited for rescue. The shelter's door had warped in the heat. Joe spent 14 minutes with a thermal cutter she'd retrieved from her maintenance kit, working the door seam with the methodical patience of someone who had cut open stuck panels her entire career. The smoke was thicker now. Her mask's filter was at 30% capacity. Her hands had stopped shaking, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she had allocated that fear to a compartment she would open later when there was time. The door gave. The boy inside was curled in the corner, arms over his head, in the ancient human posture of someone who has run out of options and is simply waiting for the universe to decide. Joe crouched down to his eye level. Let's go, she said. He looked at her soot-dark face and her maintenance uniform and her cracked mask, and she watched him decide, in an instant, to trust a stranger completely. They got out with 40 seconds to spare before the deck collapsed behind them. Joe Minnie-Dai-Hiwa woke in a medical bay 3 days later. The first face she saw was Sam's. His arm was in a regenerative cast, his eyes were red-rimmed and bright, and he was sitting in the chair beside her bed with the expression of someone who had been sitting there for a very long time. "You're in the Hero Archive," he said. She blinked. "What? Earth? The fleet?" They submitted the incident report, and someone in the public record office pulled it, and he stopped. Swallowed. "You're in the Hero Archive, Joe. They inscribed you. You and your name and everything you did. It's permanent. It's the official record." Joe Minnie-Dai-Hiwa stared at the ceiling of the medical bay for a long moment. "I was just doing my job," she said. Sam looked at her steadily. "No," he said. "You went back. 3 times. That's not a job. That's a choice." Lily appeared in the doorway, cadet unknown, whose name, Joe now learned, was Kale, hovering behind her. They were both in clean uniforms. They were both alive. Joe looked at the 3 of them. She looked at her own hands, bandaged at the palms, knuckles still bruised, and tried to find the shape of what had happened. The Vorith had expected humans to fold, had expected fear to work on them the way it worked on species who had not spent 10,000 years surviving each other and their own catastrophes, who had not built, in their long, violent, careful history, a very specific kind of person, the kind who counts the seconds between impacts and runs toward the sound. The kind who makes a map of every dark tunnel before she needs it. The kind who goes back. "The archive is permanent," Kale said softly from the doorway. "Your name is permanent." Joe Minnie-Dai-Hiwa closed her eyes. She thought, "I still have a pressure coupling to finish replacing in Tunnel 7 Bravo." Then she thought, "It can wait." For the first time in her quiet, precise, unremarkable life, she let herself rest, held in the warmth of 3 heartbeats that were still beating because she had decided, simply and without drama, that they would be. Somewhere on Earth, in the hall of the Hero Archive, a new inscription dried in gold. Joe Minnie-Dai-Hiwa, Maintenance Technician, Class 7. She went back, and across 17 frequencies, the Vorith, who had declared their victory too early, began, slowly, to understand what kind of species they had made an enemy of.